Well, 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 look what the cat dragged in. I'm just kidding. As I say at the end of every podcast, I love you. Thank you for listening. But you thought I was gone for good, didn't you? You know, I didn't post an episode on the weekend. Well, guess what? This is kind of a jam-packed episode with a lot of information. It may not be any longer, but it is probably the most dense episode I have ever done. If you thought I was gone or I was missing an episode, well, guess who looks stupid now? It's still me. I record this in my closet with a crappy mic. It's still me. I look stupid. But actually, as I release this, it is probably, if you're listening to this the day it releases, assuming everything goes to plan on my end, you know, I accidentally deleted Premiere Pro from my computer, so now I got to re-download that. My computer is slow as it is, so that's going to take a while, and then I got to go through all those shenanigans. Assuming everything's going to plan, it's Valentine's Day, so you know what? I hope that you are listening to this episode over a nice fancy dinner with your significant other. I hope that you are sitting in like a Cheesecake Factory or an Olive Garden or some middle-class fancy restaurant, and you're being really inconsiderate by playing this podcast at full volume out of your phone at the dinner table with your significant other, except actually, guess what? No, it's not inconsiderate. It's good, because other people need to listen to this podcast episode about one of my favorite topics ever. One of the things I could talk about for forever just because it's so interesting to me. Giants. That's right. I am talking about Giants today. Anyone who has known me for like at least a month has heard me talk about Giants in one way or another. Maybe those Instagram ads are right. I am autistic, and this is just like my special interest. You know how some people have like sharks or vacuum cleaners or like metal detecting. I don't know what those people are into. Maybe mine is just I really like Giants. Now, before I get into that, you know how it is if you've listened to the episode. I gotta ramble about something for like 10 minutes or so. Not only because it's timely, it's current, whatever, but also so I can just kind of warm up and get into this. Because really, believe it or not, when I'm sitting at home alone, I'm not much of a talker. I'm pretty dang quiet. I don't even really talk to my roommate. I'm sitting there doing whatever, and I'm not used to shouting into a microphone on you know, in my closet. I've done it this is like the 5th time I've done it now. Pretty crazy to think that on the 5th episode I'm getting into a topic as gnarly as Giants. But anyway, the Super Bowl was this past weekend. Yeah, sorry if you're a 49ers fan. Luis, I'm sure by the time that this episode comes out, you'll be over it. If not, I hope this is a nice reminder. I am sorry for your loss, but surely you will get over it. That was just unwarrantedly kind of mean. Sorry, Luis. But at least I know you're listening. So the big storyline, I don't know if you guys heard anything about this. Taylor Swift was at that game, and Taylor Swift is dating Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce, honestly, one of the most unlikable dudes in the entire NFL. I follow the NFL fairly closely. I'm more of a college football connoisseur myself, but the NFL certainly can be fascinating at times. Travis Kelce is just kind of how do I put this? Well, I'll just say exactly what my mom said. I'm not quite sure what it means, but this is where I get all of my weird sayings from. He's not exactly a master burrito maker. Thank you, Mom. I've got no clue what that means. but it means something. And you know what? That's my official stance on Travis Kelce. He's not exactly a master burrito maker. And I guess neither is his girlfriend, Taylor Swift. Have you seen the memes? Like, there's a Twitter account that's like Taylor Swift flight tracker. First of all, because of course there is, but also it posts all the flights that she does. So it's like, it's a 30-minute drive, but she says, why would I drive 30 minutes when I could fly my plane 14 minutes and get there in half the time? Just completely inconvenience a bunch of other people. You know, I don't know how air traffic control works, but that just seems ridiculous. You know, a 30-minute drive, Taylor, really? Why just drive 30 minutes? It's not, I do that to get to work every day. Are you kidding me? I don't know, maybe she gets car sick. Honestly, I don't care. I just think it's kind of funny, you know, all the elites who will preach, oh, we need to reduce CO2 carbon footprint, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, you got half of them flying in their private jets just for really stupid trips that could be done in a car and release less CO2 and lessen the carbon footprint. Whatever. I'm actually going to ramble about a bit of a bigger conspiracy. This is something that, again, I know pretty much all the people who listen to this have or work with me, so you have either talked with me about this directly and we have kind of workshopped this idea collectively, or you have just overheard me yapping about it. I don't think the relationship is real. I just don't think it is. I think it is a ploy by, the dolts, the bureaucrats, the hooligans, the thugs in charge, the skylarkers, if you will. It is a ploy by the powers that be. They're like, oh, hey, you remember this chick? Yeah, like in 2008, she had like this entire like country girl fan base. And you know what? They're probably like right-leaning. They're probably at least some sort of conservative. So what if we say, wait, Taylor, she kind of drifted away from that a little bit. What if we bring her back into it and reignite that fan base by, I don't know, setting her up with like this meathead jock, and it's like a classic love story. Like one of her songs, I don't know the name of it, but I've got a few of her songs ingrained in my head because my older sister listened to Taylor Swift non-stop on her iPod. This was before she had like an unlimited music streaming library too. So she had like the same 10 Taylor Swift songs constantly on rotation. Like I listened to one, maybe two bands like a majority, like 99% of the time, but at least I've got their entire discography to cycle through so I don't drive myself nuts. She listened to like one album's worth of Taylor Swift all the time. I don't know how you do that. She's not that good, right? Like, she's not that good. I mean, her music just isn't my thing, but like someone who likes her, like, she's not that good, right? Surely? Anyway, that doesn't matter. That's besides the point here. I think that this is just, like a clown show event happening. This is a crazy rodeo going on, and she's gonna be like, oh yeah, me and my meathead jock sweetheart, we're getting together, we're gonna get married too, whatever. And she posted on her Instagram story encouraging her followers to go vote. Speaking of that, I post on my Instagram story all the time, literally all the time. I'm sorry if you're annoyed by it. I have a reason for it. But go follow if you don't at negativespace.pod. I put funny stuff on there all the time, and also just some stupid things, and also maybe some helpful things. But anyway, she put on her Instagram story, oh, go vote, whatever. And like after that, like I think it was something like 30 million people registered to vote after she said to. Are you kidding me? You're telling me Taylor Swift has the ability to cast 30,000 votes? Because these people are just going to do whatever she wants. If she says, oh, vote for Biden, she's going to have 30 million people voting for Biden. If she says, oh, vote for Trump, which is not going to happen. Like, let's be real. That's not going to happen. This is a ploy set up by the DNC. This is like some sort of weird psyop. This is a psyop, actually. This is a psyop going on. They are leveraging the Swiftarians and the immense amount of leverage that she holds over a certain portion of the population for Lord knows why. Like, how do you idolize someone that much? You know, that's what happens when people like don't have God. They make humans gods. But anyway, yeah, I think it's just a big ploy. Doesn't help that her man child of a boyfriend is Mr. Pfizer. Shout out Aaron Rodgers. You're a funny dude sometimes, man. A little nuts, but a funny dude. He's the one who originally called Travis Mr. Pfizer, and that's just hilarious. That's just hilarious because you've got two like insane people going head to head. Aaron Rodgers went on his whole darkness retreat and listened to dolphin noises to heal his ACL. Which, hey, if it works, it works. But I hold my reservations, you know. And then you got Travis Kelce, who you go back to his tweets from like 10 years ago. Wow, I gave this squirrel a piece of bread, and where he misspells both squirrel and piece, and he said, and he smashed it up. Haha, crazy. He probably has CTE. Like, and it's only gotten worse if he was that dumb in 2014, taking all those hits. Every game is like the equivalent of a car crash for your body. That is basically a fact at this point. For professional football players, at least, every game, when you take so many hits, when you're making so much physical contact, if you are getting hit or you are hitting someone else, it's like going through a car crash every week. So I can only imagine, you know, where this dude's head is at. If he was already, you know, dumber than a bag of rocks to begin with, then he's got the IQ of, like, I don't even know how to say this without being offensive towards like single cell amoebas. But you get what I'm saying. Not exactly a master burrito maker. So yeah, I think that whole thing is a psyop. I think the Chiefs winning was kind of a rigged thing. It was inevitable. It was planned, just to kind of further this narrative, because, you know, every 4 years we gotta have something wacky like this happen to swing something the DNC's way, particularly in, I don't know, swing states that probably have a lot of girls who have nothing better to do than follow Taylor Swift. I'm looking at you, Midwest. So they're like, oh my gosh, what is Taylor Swift doing every moment? Okay, I've talked enough about her. I'm going to say I don't care about her, but you could say, but you just talked for like 10 minutes about her and her boyfriend Travis. No, I talked about the psyop. Don't get it twisted there, bucko. Let's see. I originally was not planning on ranting about this. I was planning on ranting about the Apple Vision Pro, but I've already done that enough. Basically, just don't fry your eyeballs. You're probably having your retinas scanned, like, and even if there is a class action lawsuit, what are you going to do about it? They've scanned your retinas. They can use that for anything. Oh yeah, Noah Yuval Harari saying that he wants to chip everyone for the next stage of evolution. You know, everyone get jacked into the silly vision changer things. You know, I think I would be more okay with that if oh, this is so stupid. Have you guys seen the new AI that some gentlemen have released online that will go through like selfies that women will post on Twitter, and it'll generate photos of them, but they're like fully clothed. It's I forget what it's called. It's called like Dignity AI or something like that, I think. I would be fine with it if you took all the like weird creepy Tinder dudes and you jacked them into that, and you downloaded those things into the Vision Pro and you didn't allow them to take it off for like a year. I think then we could start healing as a society. That was so dumb and just so. That was a little out of pocket. Let's be real. That was out of pocket. But you know what? It's in the podcast. I'm not taking it out. Okay. Now let's get to the topic of the hour, shall we? Let's talk about giants. We're done talking about newfangled doohickeys and celebrities. We're talking about giants, giant humans of ancient origin. So, I'll start kind of in the beginning. I will start with Genesis and other ancient creation stories. Again, we're getting theological. Honestly, my interest in weird theology, it kind of coincides with my proclivity towards conspiracy theories. So I'm not surprised. I never meant for this podcast to get like semi-theological, but here we are. Now, some of you might say, didn't you just say like a few episodes ago that the flat earth theory from the Bible, you shouldn't take that for what it is, because all these other cultures had stories similar to it. Didn't you say that because those things overlap, that doesn't mean that it's good evidence? Sort of, kind of. Yes, but not really, okay? Don't be putting words in my mouth. I see you there. No, I'm joking, of course. The difference is there is a nuance to this, okay? I will this time for giants use the stories of other cultures to say, hey, maybe there's more to this than we really think. In fact, I know that and people in the government know that there's more to this than they really think, because of Freedom of Information Act requests. But we will get to that in a little bit. There are some important distinctions to make here, okay? So first, in the context of flat Earth, the flat Earth Bible stuff, that is cosmology. That isn't scientific in any way. And different peoples in different regions interpreted that differently. So the ancient Near East had their own interpretation of it. They had like the skies being a vault and the pillars that held up the ends of the sky and what have you. But some cultures, they had like a giant turtle carrying the earth. That sort of thing. It wasn't like a worldwide thing. It was more just a region by region thing. So that's the first difference. Giants are like, they are worldwide. Every culture, as we will get to in a minute, has stories of giants. The second one is that, the ancient person, like I said, they never climbed a mountain. They could never try to go up and touch the cast iron firmament that is the sky. They could never do that, but they could go outside and see giants ravaging their cities and, taking a big sledgehammer and smashing their hut. So I'm more inclined to believe a story of a giant because that's something you can see. It's something you can touch. It's something you can interact with. Cosmology is not something you can interact with. They just kind of had to guess, and they guessed region by region. So let's start in Genesis, and we'll talk a little bit about Enoch. So for the record, before I get into any of this, Enoch, also known as First Enoch in scholarly circles, because there are other books of Enoch. There's like there's First Enoch, then there's like Second, Third, I think Fourth Enoch, whatever. Those were written in the intertestamental era by Gnostics. Those are certainly, not scripture. Those are certainly apocryphal, or beyond apocryphal. Those are pseudepigrapha, I think. I don't remember. Enoch, I don't necessarily consider to be scripture, but I do think it carries a lot of important theological weight that I will get to. And it provides a good amount of context for the beliefs of the biblical writers. Whether you believe Moses wrote the whole of the Torah or whatever. Honestly, it doesn't really matter to me. That is like a tertiary issue to the billionth degree, and doesn't even matter in the context of this podcast. But anyway, there are church fathers who thought that Enoch should have been canon. And it's referenced, I think, 100 times in the canonized scripture. So even if it's not a literal history at all, it at least is like a good foundation of sort of a supernatural worldview understanding of this. Now, Genesis 6 is the first place in the Bible where you get mentions of giants. The Hebrew word used for it is NEPHILIM. So this can be interpreted as both giants and fallen ones. The term giants used in many English translations specifically comes from a translation of the Septuagint, which was the translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek. Now, this is a very powerful tool because Greek is one of the most precise languages to ever exist. I don't know enough about Greek grammar to like specify that. Honestly, I don't think you really care. You're here to hear me talk about giants. Or maybe you're just here to hear me yap because for some reason you like the sound of my voice. I don't think that's anybody, but if you do, well, I don't know. Keep listening, bub. The word gigantes, I don't know how you say it in Greek, whatever. That was translated to giants. And this is important to note that this was in the Septuagint that translated Nephilim to gigantes, to giants. Because there is sort of an opposing view to Genesis. My view of Genesis 6, that these are literal giants, literal Nephilim. This is called the Sethite view, and it views the angels who sinned as Paul wrote it, which I think immediately discredits the Sethite view that Paul himself writes about angels who sinned. They think that the sons of God, quote unquote, that are mentioned in Genesis 6 are actually just men from the line of Seth, and the women are from the line of Cain. Now, again, we can make a scriptural argument against this, like I did, but I'm gonna do the same thing that I did in the biblical conspiracy theories that irk me episode. I'm just gonna try to take it out from the feet. Okay, so first off, that assumes that you can only have male believers, and you can only have male believers from one lineage. If the sons of God, if the only righteous people on earth were men from the line of Seth, then that means all the women were just evil, and they weren't believers. They were demon worshipers, whatever. And you really have to read into the phrase "the daughters of mankind" being Cain. Like the text just really doesn't say that. Now, this view came into prominence from Augustine, or Augustine, however you pronounce it. I think Augustine sounds cooler, so I'm going to say that, even though I know everyone from where I'm from would say Augustine because we're just like that. But I'm going to say Augustine. I like Augustine better. So the Sethite view wasn't really popular until the 3rd century, and Augustine had an axe to grind, theological axe to grind. And that's where we get all our great theology, is when people have vendettas against one another. So his gripe was with a group called the Manicheans. They really liked Enoch, and they thought Enoch was inspired scripture. And Augustine had a problem with that. He parted ways with the Manichean. He was actually a part of them for a little bit, I believe, and kind of just became embittered towards them. So he was like, no, I don't like this Nephilim view because the Manicheans say that. I'm going to find a different way to justify Genesis 6. So that's how we somehow get, I guess giant. I don't even know if the Sethite view, I think some people in the Sethite view think that they actually made giants. Some people in the Sethite view just don't think giants existed at all. Again, I don't agree with either one, but if you believed that giants did exist, you'd have to somehow assume that humanity were giants to begin with, and then somehow created bigger giants, which doesn't work because what scale are you working from to begin with? And it just becomes kind of a circle that it's a merry-go-round that is going at like 100 miles an hour and you can't get off of. So that's why I think that Genesis 6 is actually talking about literal giants, literal giants who are the offspring of angels who sinned, who who made them with human women. And now this is where we get to Enoch, because the book of Enoch sort of expands on this a little more. In chapters 1 through 36, Enoch goes into detail about the Watchers. Now, the Watchers are a term that you see a few times throughout the canonized Bible too. I believe, the Watchers were the ones who told King Nebuchadnezzar that he was going to go insane for a little bit and kind of roam around like a cow by order of the Most High. From what I get, like, obviously not all the Watchers did it. Like, some of the Watchers did it, but some of them, stayed loyal. That's a whole spiritual warfare thing. But yeah, the Watchers were the ones who saw the children or the daughters of man, and they said, wow, they're beautiful. And so the Watchers descended on Mount Hermon, as Enoch tells it, this is why I think Enoch carries some theological weight. Mount Hermon is where some believe, and I take this view, that the transfiguration of Jesus happened. Now, so there are debates as to where this happened. I know. I think a more like church tradition-y answer is Mount Tabor. But let me give the case for why I think it's Mount Hermon. Okay. So Christ takes some of the disciples up there. I forget which one. I don't know. It doesn't matter to the story. And he says that the church will be founded upon this rock. Now, I don't care how you interpret that. That is besides the point, really, when it comes to that. I think any interpretation really fits with this. And he said the gates of hell would not withstand it. Well, so in ancient belief, Pan's Grotto was the literal gates of hell, the gates of Hades. You go in there and you enter in out, sort of like the idea that Dante gives in the beginning of the Divine Comedy. Like, he has this entrance to this cave that he goes into, and he ends up, in the center of the earth in Inferno. That was kind of the ancient belief, and that was right there where they would have been, near Caesarea Philippi, at the foot of Mount Hermon. So another important distinction to make between Hermon and Tabor is that it says that Jesus took him up on a high rock. Mount Hermon is literally 8 times as high as Mount Tabor. Mount Hermon is something like 8,000 feet tall. Tabor is only 1,000 feet tall. So those are important distinctions. I think that's why Jesus, actually transfigured on Mount Hermon. I think it was sort of like another theological poke in the eye. He was declaring war on these Watchers who contributed to depravity in humanity by creating giants that caused havoc on Earth and created all sorts of problems. I think this was Jesus saying, all you other guys may be called sons of God, but I am a unique son of God because I am God. You see the phrase "sons of God" used across the Old Testament for these people. Sometimes they're used for literal people, but sometimes they are used for spiritual beings. So if you want to play semantics with that, whatever. That's kind of my view, and that's why I think Hermon is very important in this story. But all this to say, I think Enoch holds a lot of theological and contextual weight. It's also where we get the idea of the Son of Man coming to redeem the world from its sin. And again, I only use First Enoch to justify this because the Gnostic Enoch text would later write that Enoch himself was the Son of Man and he was the Messiah, which obviously does not fit in with the canon of Scripture. But alongside Enoch in the Dead Sea Scrolls, we got another book related to it called the Book of the Giants. So this is another apocryphal text from the time of Enoch, from this kind of like early Israel period. And they were found together in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it goes over a lot of the same material, such as how giants came to be, where they came from, the events at Hermon, that sort of thing. But it also names off several giants. So these are some of the figures in there and the meanings of some of their names. Some of the names we don't know how they translate. Like we just don't. But keep in mind some of these as we go down. There are some important links between some of them that you see come up in other giant stories, which I think are fascinating. So you got Oya and Haya, who are twin brothers. They were giants. You got Mawe. You got Baraquel, which is sometimes interpreted as lightning of God or blessed by God. You got Shemihaza, which is often interpreted as heavenly name or he who sees the name. You got Amaros, Kokabel, sometimes interpreted as star of God or star of El. Hanan, Tresar, Gavia, Zavivi, Azazel, often interpreted as God strengthens or strength of God. You also see Azazel mentioned in the Passover scapegoat laws. You got Samsevil, Ezekiel, which is God strengthens, or just another variant of Ezekiel. Erekiel, Badarel, Ananel, sometimes interpreted as cloud of God or grace of God, and Turel. So all the names that have El at the end, El is a suffix that is like in relation to God. So like Daniel, for example, I believe means God is judge. And then you see like these other names that are like God strengthened, strength of God, cloud of God, grace of God, star of God, those sorts of things. Now there's some theology actually I think to be picked from this. So take for example Shemiaza. He who sees the name is significant. Now first off, the name that's important. A lot of Jews will refer to the father figure of what Christians believe to be the Trinity as Hashem, which means the name, because the name is a very important. The name of the Lord is very important within the Old Testament. But that name in particular is significant because many think about the surrounding cherubim around the throne of God. Many of them have wings specifically to cover their face so they don't look directly at the Father. So this guy, if he was powerful enough to see God, that means he was really, really close to God. But he did not follow the bro code. I don't know if the bro code was established then, but he said, yo, she's kind of hot. Peace out, God. And he left. Another thing to think about, to note when talking about biblical giant stories is the term Rephaim. So it's referenced in multiple places, but I don't think ever means the same thing. So you either get giants or you get the dead or disembodied spirits. Outside sources such as the Ugaritic text don't necessarily call them giants, which muddies the picture up even more. So, you got the handshake meme of the writers of the Malcolm in the Middle theme song and Dr. Worm, and then the other hand is the Rephaim, and the middle, the thing they're the same on is they might be giants. That's so stupid. I'm sorry. If you get that, great. If you don't, I'm sorry. Anyway, so they're not, the Rephaim aren't necessarily the disembodied spirits of dead Nephilim, which would be the term Shadim. This is in ancient Jewish theology, as we see in Enoch, where we get the concept of demons from, the immaterial portion of a Nephilim, which is half spiritual being, half human, sort of like a demigod, if you will. If that helps illustrate it a little bit. They're sentenced to sort of roam the earth until the time at the end, until the second coming, the judgment, lake of fire, all that fun stuff. Now I know the more standard Christian idea is, demons are fallen angels, but these ideas to me aren't incompatible. Like, you get very similar ideas, if not exactly the same ideas, just from a slightly different route. Like your one idea is taking the back roads, one idea is taking the highway, but you're getting to the same destination. Now, aside from the Nephilim, you also have the Anakim, which they're a different set of giants with 3 clans. I'm not sure if they really came from different areas or if maybe like they were later descendants of the Nephilim themselves, because the Nephilim were descendants of the Watchers. I don't know. But you got the 3 clans, the Shishai, I think I said that right, the Ahiman, and the Talmai. I definitely butchered probably all of them. And they were said to be the enemies of the people of Israel. The spies in Numbers 13 talked about them. Now, the Anakim were also said to be a branch of the Rephaim, if that makes anything a little clearer. I haven't quite put any of the puzzle pieces together, because I think the Rephaim is just sort of a term that it seems like it's been lost to history. Like, we'll never know exactly the cultural context of it, but it's used in a few different ways. But the biblical tradition is certainly not the only one that has stories of giants. We will get to a bunch of those. The first one I want to talk about is the Mesopotamians and the Apkallu. Now, this one is interesting to me because it's sort of the backdrop of the Nephilim story. It's what Genesis is responding to. There are some very important differences between the stories, but it's almost as if Genesis is saying, okay, like, yeah, these are history, but you got a few things wrong here. Some important things. My chair is squeaking. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but it is squeaking. The back legs need to be tightened. Oh my gosh, I didn't need to interject that, but oh well. I'm having a good time, man. I get to talk about giants. So the Apkallu, they're the same entities from what I gather as the Nephilim, half human, half spirit, again, like a demigod sort of thing. And they gave humanity knowledge that we shouldn't have had. Sound familiar? Alongside alongside how to start civilization and stuff like that. Like, they taught humans how to dig up metal and create weapons to proliferate the killing of each other. That's great. One of the Apkallu giants is Gilgamesh. Now, you may have heard the name Gilgamesh before. He is the protagonist of the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is one of the oldest books that we have. Literally, one of the oldest pieces of ancient literature that we have. It's older than the Odyssey. It's about 6,000 or so years old, and it's the story of, obviously, the giant Gilgamesh, who was a hero of Sumerian lore and a very arrogant king. So it begins by introducing him. He's a very arrogant ruler, so he's oppressing his people. He's part divine, specifically 2/3 God and 1/3 human. The half, 2/3, 1/3. It's all, all one and the same, really. It doesn't really matter. The gods of the Sumerian Mesopotamian pantheon don't really like him. They're saying, okay, bud, you're getting a little too big for your britches. So they create basically a wild human in order to try to humble him. This fella is named Enkidu. I practiced saying that name several times because I knew I was going to mess it up. Enkidu, that is his name. Enkidu, he's running around having a great time. He meets a temple prostitute because, yeah, icky. And slowly becomes more human, I guess, because for some reason that did that to him. Gilgamesh and Enkidu slowly become friends. They kill some monsters together, and do other wholesome activities. And, it's a real buddy cop moment. And then the gods say basically, no, we can't have that. And they strike Enkidu with a terminal illness to spite Gilgamesh. That shouldn't be as funny as it is. This guy they created He's just trying to live his life and he's becoming more human. They're like, nah, you're just our puppet. Terminal illness. That's ridiculous. Anyway, the point of that was to get Gilgamesh to question his own mortality. Now here's where this gets really interesting. Gilgamesh meets a human named Utnapishtim. Again, I hope I'm saying that correctly. I practiced it a few times. It still tripped me up. Utnapishtim. And what was interesting about Utnapishtim is he was the human that the gods chose to survive the flood that came out to wipe humanity and the wicked giants. Again, the overlap here is important, but one story makes distinctions from the other for theological positioning, saying that the God of Israel is above all these other gods. So Utnapishtim, he survives the flood with his family and his animals. You know, we know that sounds familiar. You know, we get into the responding, whatever. Eventually, Utnapishtim challenges Gilgamesh, saying that he'll teach him his secrets of living a long life if he can stay awake for a whole week. I just want to say, if I was in that position, I would not make it past a day. Like, I am in bed by like 9:30 at the latest. I am the you know the tea brand that's run by the cult here in California, the Sleepy Time tea brand with the bear. That is me. I don't know what you call that, but that is my aesthetic. He is literally me. Whatever, insert Ryan Gosling meme here, he is literally me. He just like me for real, all that sort of stuff. I am that bear. I am in bed in my jammies, tucked away, sleeping cozy by 9:30. So the fact that Gilgamesh even attempted this is frankly, I gotta commend him for it. Claps all around for Gilgamesh for trying to stay up to, I guess, learn the secrets of immortality. But anyway, he failed. He didn't make it. He still failed. But he probably lasted longer than I would have. After he failed, he was told by I don't know who, but someone told him about this plant at the bottom of the ocean that will give him eternal life. He says, okay, time to put on my scuba gear. No, he didn't, of course. He goes down, he grabs it, and it's just stolen. He has it stolen by a snake. It's stolen by a snake, takes it from him, which is great. He eventually learns that he can't trick the gods into giving him eternal life, eternality, whatever. And this all ends on a happy note. And Gilgamesh is a good guy who wants to leave a positive legacy. Now, is all this to say that this is literal history? Well, you'll find that some people do. Put a pin in that idea, that some people do. Now, I don't think necessarily, but there is an overlap that can be had between literal history and truth and myth. I think that it's very real. It's a very real possibility. Gilgamesh was a real giant. Maybe he didn't go through those exact series of events, despite the continuity between the bits of continuity. Parts of it could be true, parts of it could be false. I personally think that Gilgamesh was a real giant, because I just think that the giants were real. Surprise, surprise. How long am I into this? Holy crap, I'm 43 minutes into this, and I'm not even halfway through it. I definitely, see, this is a dense episode, man. I definitely think that the giants were real. So Gilgamesh, I think, probably a real guy, but just not all this story is 100% literal history. Again, important distinction to make. I will clarify this until the end of the time. Bible is not copying the other text. It's making the distinction that these giants were evil figures, while the Mesopotamians are like, wow, these guys are great, they're teaching us all these things. Okay, I just need to make sure that it's hammered in so I don't get my words taken out of context, even though like 2 people listen to this podcast. Okay, now that's all well and good. The ancient Near East, good for them. They got giant stories. But were they anywhere else say yes, they were. They were all literally all over. Like, the better question to ask is not what cultures did have giant stories. It's what cultures didn't have giant stories. Okay? So you got the Norse, for example. Take the Norse. I'm going to run through a few. I don't know how quickly I'm going to do it because there's a bit of information in all of these, but there are quite a few of them. The Norse, their legends of giants are called the Jotnar. They were antagonistic spiritual beings that had some sort of complex relation with their pantheon of gods. If you go back to the second episode, I also briefly outline the connection between Old Norse mythology and their symbolism and what is seen in the Hollywood cult of today, which creates another interesting link in this chain. The Greeks, of course, had giant stories, most notably a giant showdown between the giants and Zeus, where Zeus defeats them. What's also interesting about this is that biblical writers like Paul were absolutely aware of these stories and even makes reference to Greek literature when he talks about Tartarus, which is where he says some of the angels who are sinned are being held. And I think that's also the bottomless pit passage in Revelation. I'm not exactly sure. I don't have the material right in front of me. Whatever. Rolling on. We keep on going. Hinduism also often connects the concepts of giants and demons, and pretty seamlessly at that. So they've got these beings called asuras, which are a broad category of supernatural beings, often translated as demons in English. However, the term is a little more complex and doesn't carry the same negative connotation as demon in the West. But asuras can be both benevolent and malevolent, and many of them possess great power and knowledge. Does that sound like, anything you heard before? They're not the only ones, too. You got the Rakshasas. Rakshasa. Come on, man. You eat tikka masala once a week. You should know how to say this. They are shape-shifting demons. Then you got the Jamba, which is a big giant demon, and the Hiryankasha and... Wait, no, that is a name. Hiryankasha and Hiryankashipu, which are twin demon giant brothers, much like the ones in the Book of the Giants. Moving a little westward, Celtic mythology is also rich with tales of giants, such as Bran the Blessed, who is said to have the knowledge of alchemy and raising the dead to life. Ysbaden Benquar is another, alongside Baelor, and Gog Magog, which interestingly is spelled exactly like Gog and Magog, like you will find in Revelation. I don't know if there's any link there, but I will almost definitely do some sort of deep dive on my own time. I doubt that'll become a podcast topic, but I will keep you posted. And that is alongside a few others as well. The Aboriginal Australians have tales of a creature called the Yowie, which sounds like a cartoon sound effect for when you stub your toe. Youch! Yowie! Yowie is much like how we would think of like Sasquatch or Bigfoot, or I guess maybe a better comparison would be the Tennessee Wildman, because the Tennessee Wildman is more man than ape, while Sasquatch is more ape than man. I know too much about weird cryptids that probably don't exist. And then the Native Americans. The Native Americans also have a very robust oral tradition of giants. We'll get into just how deep that goes, pun absolutely intended, in a little bit. But some of their stories not only include the Thunderbird, which was a giant bird that would swoop down, snatch people, and literally cause thunderstorms in their traditions. And I grew up not too far, actually, from a reservation that had tales of this creature, the Ho-Chunk. They own a casino, as most of these people do. As for the human giants, the Choctaw have tales of cannibal giants that they defeated with the help of a supernatural entity. The Paiutes had stories of red-haired giants that they drove into a cave and killed. You heard it here first. Gingers come from these giants. If you're ginger and you're listening to this, I'm very sorry. Obviously, that is not true. I'm making a joke. This is a joke. And as I might as well mention, because I pretty much have to just to not get whacked by the CIA, I feel like, I see what you've been doing to my car. You've been messing with my car, CIA, and you've been planting ads on my Instagram. Oh my gosh, I've gone off the rails. This is post-ironic humor. Everything has a big allegedly stamp over it, okay? Now that we got that out of the way, Iroquois also have stories of stone giants who they defeated with supernatural help. The Chopek also have stories of the Yachan, which are, of course, giant supernatural entities. In my neck of the woods, too, outside of these malevolent giants, there is this kind of, I guess, I wouldn't call it an urban legend. I would call it more like a folk tale. I think folk tale is the right word for it. Paul Bunyan, he was a giant lumberjack, and Babe the Blue Ox, which was his special little his blue ox. I don't know why he had a blue ox. Why they made the ox blue, but that's a fun little folk tale from my neck of the woods. Now, we're going to get a little more local to where this podcast is recorded. You have the people of the Mound who are reported by locals near Mount Shasta in California to come out of the mountain at night, being between 9 and 10 feet tall. So one could say, they're taller than the average person. They're giant, aren't they? These people are believed to be from a land that was lost and is now under sea from when the tectonic plates shifted and Pangea separated. What's fascinating about that is that it took them long enough, but science has confirmed what people like me have been saying for a long time, is that around the Oceania area and New Zealand, there is an underwater continent. I wonder if there's any correlation there. Now we go to the Spaniards and the Argentinians. I realize I'm kind of going all over the place now. I should have just kept it more linear. But the Spaniards and the Argentinians, they share a tale of a giant, the Cap d'Oie. This was a 12-foot giant. I can't speak. See, I'm losing it. I've been recording for too long. I'm losing it. This was a 12-foot giant with 2 heads. When the Spaniards went to Argentina in the 1600s, they captured it and stuck it onto the hull of their ship. It broke free, killed 4 sailors, and then was finally killed by the crew. I believe you can look up photos and find this skeleton that they've preserved. I think, I don't know, it could be a recreation. I don't know, but I still think the story's cool and it fits my narrative, so I'm going to believe it. Then we can go to Laos. Now, this isn't explicit giant information, but they have something called the Plains of Jars. These are giant stone jars, some of them with lids, and nobody knows where they came from. We just literally have no idea. But of course, the locals who have been there forever believe that these giant jars, of course, belong to giant humans. I would put money on, and that's how we also got, the Easter Island statues and how we got Stonehenge. Giants. That's what I would chalk it up to. Now, there are plenty more cultures, such as the Chinese, Polynesians, and just other Eastern cultures have giant stories. But safe to say, they're prevalent anywhere. In fact, I can't even think of a culture that doesn't have any sort of giant story. And that's just kind of skipping over what I'm sure. I would be willing to bet that different countries in Africa also have a lot of giant stories. I didn't even think about that until just now. Wow. Now, that's all well and good, but who cares about giants in the past? We don't see them today, so surely this all has to be myth, right? Well, listen to this speech by Abraham Lincoln at Niagara Falls. Abraham Lincoln, in the grand scheme of things, relatively close to where we live now, wouldn't you say? He was at Niagara Falls giving this speech. This is an excerpt, of course. When Columbus first sought this continent, when Christ suffered on the cross, when Moses led Israel through the Red Sea, nay, even when Adam first came from the hand of his Creator, then, as now, Niagara was roaring here. The eyes of that species of extinct giants whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as ours do now. Mounds of America, you say? Well, I have seen some of these mounds myself, believe it or not. Driving through Ohio as a child. Actually, no, I'm not going to justify why I was going through Ohio as a kid. But yes, I have seen them. I didn't know what they were. I just thought they were hills, and I thought that's awfully strange to have hills in a very flat state like Ohio. The whole entire Midwest is just flat because of they say the ice caps that came down and, flattened everything out. Like a big... That was such a stupid bit. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. If you're still listening, thank you. I've gone off the deep end. But some of these mounds are massive. They are absolutely massive. They're bigger than the pyramids. The Cahokia Mound, for example, is 100 feet tall with a 14-acre base. Now, my family lives on an acre of land, so I know how big an acre is. 14 of those? Are you kidding me? That is massive. In fact, 14 acres out of it, that's a whole acre bigger than the pyramids. Oh my gosh. I'm cracking my voice because my throat is drying out because I've been going on about this for so long. But these are all over the place. Some in Martha's Vineyard, all along the East Coast, really. But a lot of them are in the South and in the Midwest. These were Native American burial grounds, and reports of 7-foot tall to 20-foot tall skeletons have been reported to have been found in them. New England, for example, has old reports of giant skeletons unearthed from these mounds, often with 2 rows of teeth and jaws that could fit over the head of a normal-sized human. That is crazy. Now, I'll say the next part a little jokingly, but also there's like a twinge of like, hey, isn't this fishy? You know the old horror movie trope of the haunted ancient Indian burial ground? That had to have started from somewhere, right? You got giants, Nephilim, their disembodied spirits, the Shadim, roaming those areas, Enoch calling them demons. Doesn't that at least seem an I can't speak, an teensy bit, suspicious? Doesn't that seem a little suspicious? Doesn't that, make you think, there's something to that, right? Oh boy. So the Scientific American, they themselves backed up this report in the Ohio River Valley of several giant skeletons under a 10-foot tall mound. In Arkansas, there's a 12-square-mile mound with the name inspired by the Shawnee, who are understood to be giant humans with incredible strength. It was uncovered with even more giant skeletons. Some reports said that their legs alone were up to 5 feet long. Now, if you dig into some of these ancient burial mounds with the giant skeletons, you'll find actually, these were debunked. Yeah, that's where we get to the theory of Smithsonian suppression. You see, all this started cropping up again around the time that evolution was really becoming a big thing. And, the science people kind of like that because they were starting to get a hand over the biblical creation story, right? But many a source all the way from, of course, the Scientific American to the London Globe to the New York Times had already reported findings of giant bones, and it was becoming a threat to Darwin's ideology. Now, you can take this a few different ways. One, if there were actual giants, this means that humans were actually devolving, not evolving, because we're becoming smaller and weaker. Two, it also just mean that the surprise, the biblical creation story is correct, and God created man. Or three, maybe let's just say you are someone more of the woke variety, or you're just very open to different interpretations of history. Maybe we could talk about the Powell doctrine from John Wesley Powell, where he said, we should not be doing any more research on these lost tribes because we might uncover that some of these tribes were a little more advanced than we thought, and not all of them were total savages. That is also, in my opinion, perfectly valid. At least, to an extent, of course. Now, some of these places you'll find will say that not only did the Smithsonian smash giant skulls, but also bones like femurs, some of which were up to 4 feet long. That would mean that someone with a 4-foot-long femur, assuming that the proportions were similar to a normal human, they'd have to be anywhere between 13 and 17 feet tall. Now, isn't it interesting, sort of the continuity of the height that we have? It's all sort of between like 8 to 20 feet. Like even going back to Goliath. Goliath was said to be over 9 feet tall. And he was on like the shorter end of these reported giants. That's crazy. Now, you'd think the Smithsonian mucking around in the giant bones would have totally killed off belief in these creatures, but oh boy, baby, I got a bombshell to drop on you. A little something called the Freedom of Information Act. Uh-oh, Hillary Clinton, your emails leaked. Oh no, what's in them? That's right, and I quote, Clinton is clearly, and I quote, requesting documents pertaining to the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh and the location of his body and the location of the buried Nephilim. What? Are you kidding me? You're gonna see that and then be skeptical on if giants were real? We've got members of the federal government emailing each other back and forth about the location of giant bones. That is ridiculous. That is straight up bonkersville, man. Now, there are so many routes that you could take this. Oh my gosh, you have no idea how long I've been holding in, screaming about that, because that's just crazy. That is crazy. That is insane. I am losing my mind. That is crazy. So, let's walk out some of these ideas a little bit, shall we? So, perhaps, how the last days are like the days of Noah, where the Nephilim were the most present. Those were wicked times, weren't they? They led to the foundation of the law, which was this overarching concept of avoiding impure mixtures, because God doesn't tolerate those, like he didn't tolerate sin in Eden. That sin in the dwelling place of God is an impure mixture, so he couldn't tolerate that. So naturally, God could not tolerate with heavenly host, the Watchers, mixing with humans. Fun side note on top of that, I believe Charles Missler, I think that's who it was. I think that's his name. I watched a brief sermon he had on Genesis 6 in research for this, and one of the important things I took away from it was that where it says Noah was perfect in all of his ways. Now I got to get the energy back up from just like that massive crescendo into crashing down into whispering. Noah being perfect in all of his ways. In Hebrew, the word, I forget what it was, but is clearly a reference to physical state. Meaning that his line was, if not the only one of the lines not corrupted by the watchers, which is fascinating. So maybe that means like Rephaim are sons of the Nephilim, I guess. Now that I'm clicking, those things are clicking together a little bit in my head. So now imagine you got the so-called resurrection of Gilgamesh and other Nephilim. That maybe creates an endless war of humanity against the giants. I don't know. Could you imagine how much money they would make off of that? Now, is it maybe in any way connected to the bottomless pit, where some of the watchers are held in Revelation? Or maybe they plan to disguise them as aliens. As the aliens will tell you to do one thing, follow your government blindly, otherwise we're going to nuke you off the face of this earth and your planet's just going to blow up. Wait, I meant to say that after this. Oh my gosh, I just killed the momentum I had going with this. Great, okay, the alien thing was supposed to be after this next paragraph. So just forget I said anything about that, and I'm ending with the bottomless pit in Revelation. Now, where would this be? Where could this potentially be? Well, one possible answer that creeps the living daylights out of me is the Malta catacombs. And oh, buddy, are these interesting. So in Malta, of course, they have this catacomb system, which several researchers went down there and found elongated skeletons. So that's the first part. Like, that's nothing new if you've been listening this whole time. Like, giant skeletons, whatever. Now, one of the chief researchers, she would later talk about an experience that she had. She was going further down until she came across sort of this giant ditch. She would shine her flashlight down there and saw this embankment. And as soon as the light flashed, what was it? How many was it? She saw 25 people about 20 feet tall walk out of the embankment and start reaching up towards her. I am inclined to believe it at this point because that is freaky. And I wanna literalize some of these things if I can, just because it's cool. But luckily she got out of there. Like, that would have been crazy. She wouldn't have been able to tell the tale. But that is just another data point that you can pin on the wall, and as you're connecting red threads like I am, and think, yeah, there's something afoot. There is something afoot here. That could also be Hollow Earth. Like, I'll go on a bit of a tangent here. This whole thing has been a tangent, but there is good reason to believe that Hitler believed in Hollow Earth and was looking for it. Some cultures that also believe in a Hollow Earth call it Agartha, which is allegedly sort of this oasis area within Hollow Earth, and you have no idea how badly I want to believe this exists. Like, I kind of wish I could say the cosmology was absolutely correct, and like Sheol is Hollow Earth, and that's where the giants live, and that's like the bottomless pit where some of them are being held for transgressing against God and the boundaries of nature, and that would just be cool. I don't think I can, but I want to believe that so badly. I want to believe it. Oh my gosh. Let's see. How long have I been doing this thing? This has gone kind of meta. Wow. Okay. About an hour and 10 minutes. Okay. Hour and 8 minutes right now, but almost an hour and 10 minutes by the time I get done with this. About time I should get to wrapping this thing up. Anyway, who cares? Who cares at this point? I don't know. I do, but I'm just a dude on the internet talking about giants in my closet in Los Angeles. And I'm also talking about the people who run the world trying to resurrect them for whatever nefarious purposes they could have in mind. Please do not resurrect the giants. They're cool. I like talking about giants. I like reading about the giants, but I do not want to interact with the giants. I don't want that because I will die. Although being killed by a giant would be a pretty sick way to go out in the 2000s. Like 21st century, there are worse ways to go out than being killed by a giant. Anyway, I thought it was pretty cool. I hope you agree. I had a fun time talking about this, as you can probably tell. This is one of my favorite topics ever. This is one of those topics I can literally talk for over an hour about. Is giants. If you're listening on Valentine's Day, happy Valentine's Day. I hope that this set the tone for a very romantic evening with your significant other. Talking about giants. I hope both of you like the giant stories. And yeah, if you're not listening to this on the day it comes out, then I don't know. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. If it's Easter, happy Easter. I don't know your life. You could be listening to this whenever. You could be. This channel could have blown up. I could have like 1 billion, million, gajillion, a giant number of subscribers, one could say, and you're coming back and listening to old episodes of the Negative Space podcast. The odds of that happening are very slim, but I don't know. I was surprised. I was already surprised to see Hillary Clinton emailing about the giants, so I wouldn't be surprised if, this podcast blows up. Anyway, what I do know is that giants absolutely existed to some extent. Maybe not like 500 feet tall creatures, but like at least taller than average humans, some of which having 2 sets of jaws. And they may be living in the subterranean Agartha, hanging out with Hitler and Tupac. But anyway, that's it for today. I hope you had a good time listening. Make sure to like this video. Follow my Instagram at negativespace.pod. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Comment something. I don't care. It could be absolutely anything. You could be plugging something. You could be plugging your own channel. I don't care. Like, I don't get any comments anyway, so say whatever you want, man. And also, maybe if you want to leave like a comment related to the show or to the episode, tell me something you want to hear me talk about, hear me rant about, and give my stupid opinion on. Or, tell me what's your favorite giant story. Do you think that the giants are real? Do you think I'm just insane? Anything like that. I'll take any comment I will get. I guarantee you I will respond to it. Yeah, that's about it. I think that's all for today. I will have to re-download Premiere Pro so I can actually export the video of this and do a little trimming of the audio, and that's it. Okay. Have a great day. I love you. Bye.